Hello friends, welcome back to CineClub. We are so close to Halloween and the horror movie marathon is still ongoing. Previously we discussed the best horror movies that have come out in 2019 so far. But what about the bad ones? The ones we hoped would be great but ended up being disappointing. Sadly, there were many horror movies I was anticipating this year that ended up being either a snooze fest, uninspiring, or just plain boring. Even though some of the movies have great percentage on Rotten Tomatoes, I couldn't help but think they weren't as good as I was expecting, or as good as some people made them out to be. So here are what I consider to be the most disappointing horror movies of 2019 so far. Before I go through my list, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you like in-depth analysis about movies, reviews, and TV shows. And don't forget to click the bell to receive notifications. Alright, here we go, the most disappointing horror movies of 2019 so far. Let's start with a movie that came out earlier this year, Crawl. This had all the elements to be a fun, outrageous, monster kind of movie, so to speak. But it was just too dumb while it pretended to be a legitimate good movie. When a hurricane hits Florida, this college swimmer ignores the evacuation warning in order to find her father. Not before long, the two are trapped in the house with an enormous alligator. Crocodile? Alligator? They have to figure a way to escape before the house floods or the creature eats them. I was so on board when I saw the trailer. I had a pretty good idea what this movie would be like, but in the end I just felt like it didn't deliver. The biggest problem I found was that the movie had trouble sticking to its own rules. At one point the rule was that the alligators can't see you very well, but they can hear you, so don't make any kind of noise. Then it wasn't so much about sound, it was more about movement, like the T-Rex, so stay perfectly still, and they just kept changing the rules the characters were supposed to follow. I know it's fictitious, but you should at least keep some reality in check, especially when you are deriving the villain from, an actually living creature. It bothered me a lot that this girl got her leg bitten at the very beginning of the movie, by an alligator, a creature that can cut through steel with its bite strength. But then the girl could totally walk and swim at professional speed because logic. At one point, this girl outswims several alligators. Just so you know, alligators can swim up to 20 miles per hour. Michael Phelps capped off at 6 miles per hour. So yeah, there's fiction and then there's just plain stupid. I thought it would be a cool movie about outsmarting the alligators, like the shower scene in the trailer. But there are not a lot of smart ideas in this movie. However, if you want to have a good laugh, or, just a laugh, you can go ahead and watch it. Next up is I Trapped the Devil. This Christmas/horror movie follows a man and his wife. They decide to visit his brother for Christmas Day, only to find him in quite a state. He says he has trapped the devil in his basement, and the characters spend the rest of the movie figuring out if his brother has gone insane, or if in fact he has trapped the devil himself. I loved this premise the moment I heard it. It is a solid idea, but sadly, I Trapped the Devil could have used some rewriting and just a teeny bit more of development. The acting is, well, not great, to say the least. And many of the characters' actions and reactions don't make any sense. On top of that, there are plenty of scenes where nothing is happening. Everyone seems to be waiting around, but it's never clear what they're waiting around for. Their lines? It was particularly disappointing because the movie looks great. The cinematography and composition was gorgeous and creepy. It just needed better dialogue and a better resolution. Another disappointing horror movie of 2019 was Pet Sematary. Sometimes a remake could mean better, but not always, and certainly not in this case. Is it less cheesy than the original movie? Yeah. Does it have better acting in general? Well, yeah. The problem is you can't really polish up this story much more. It's not the best horror story out there. When a father loses his child in a terrible accident, he decides to meddle with forces he doesn't understand to bring back his daughter. Look, that's very vague and I'm making it sound kind of interesting, but no, it's not. They definitely improved certain things that were terrible from the 1989 movie, but there isn't much they can do to improve the story, which is a slow starter and a weak finisher. Next up on the list is the Israeli film Gotham. The movie follows a tight-knit Jewish community. During an outbreak of a deadly plague, the community is threatened by invaders, and a mystical woman creates a golem against the community's wishes in order to protect them, but she quickly loses control of the evil creature. The movie dives into interesting ideas of 16th century Jewish folklore. It is always a good idea to find horror elements in folklore and specific cultures. The problem with Gollum is that no character is particularly interesting. The main character is just kind of there. Even though you understand her motivations, she isn't particularly intriguing or even likable. When the action finally gets going, it's kind of slow and it feels hollow. The Golem, which comes in the form of a child, is not frightening or interesting. It is not a bad film, but it really doesn't do do much with its time. It just feels bland and uneventful at the end. People keep comparing it to The Witch because the color palette and the style is similar, but it's not even half as successful in the storytelling department. Next up in the meh and ugh horror movie list is Hagazusa, A Heathen's Curse. This German film is also guilty of looking amazing but not having much of a story. An isolated goat herder must deal with being considered a witch by the village nearby. That's it. That's the story. Different websites describe the premise as a woman who feels a dark presence in the woods, but no, not really. The question posed throughout the movie is whether this woman is really a witch, or is it just society's warped view of single women? Is she considered a witch just because she's single and doesn't have a man? Is it because she doesn't abide by anybody's rules? Honestly, I'm making it sound way more interesting than it actually is. This movie made me mad. The thing about this movie is that nothing happens. Nothing. The dialogue is minimal, and by minimal I mean it was probably a 10-page script. Regardless, even if there was absolutely no dialogue, which is totally fine, the movie frequently teases you with the idea that something sinister will happen, but nothing happens. Then it loses its damn mind near the end with unsettling images, but overall they're meaningless. It's the kind of movie that is so ambiguous you think it might be profound, but it really isn't. Critics lost their mind over it because it's beautifully shot, like absolutely beautiful. But a movie can't stand on just cinematography alone. Well, next one is another Stephen King creation, and that is It 2. Oh boy. I know plenty of people like Chapter 2, but I think in general we can all agree Chapter 1 is a better movie. The overall problem with it, and we've all known this since the 1990s, is that the story with the kids is a stronger story. The reunion always feels a bit forced, especially with that whole convenient amnesia thing that stretches the plot. But I thought, now that they know this, now that we all know this, the filmmakers will surely make the proper changes. Make it scarier. The whole point is Pennywise feeds off your fear, so it would make sense to make things even more horrific. But they didn't. They made it goofier and funnier, which kinda deflated the whole point of Pennywise. I made a video about it expressing my opinion in full detail and comparing it to Chapter 1, so you can check out that link below if you would like to see it. Another disappointing horror movie of 2019 was Nightmare Cinema. This anthology presents 5 strangers who are lured into an old cinema, where they see screenings of their deepest, darkest fears, all curated by the projectionist. Doesn't that sound cool? Who doesn't love a good horror anthology? Holy balls, was this bad? The movie hits the ground running, but it immediately hits you with a typical cabin slasher short film. At first, I thought it was gonna be good, campy horror, but it's not even that. It's just plain terrible. The stories are not interesting, the acting is laughable. I'm all for horror movies being silly for entertainment's sake. It doesn't need to be a cinema masterpiece, but it's doubly disappointing when you find an interesting premise, but the presentation is subpar. My final disappointing horror movie of 2019 is Midsummer. I know. I included Midsummer in my favorite horror movies of 2019, but I also said I keep going back and forward whether I like it or not. In the previous video, I told you what I liked about it. Now I'm going to tell you what I don't like about it. First of all, it's full of itself. The movie is wrapped in a pretty bright Swedish commune package, but the box is empty. Sure, the wrapping is supposed to pique your interest, but if there's nothing inside, then it's just disappointing and somewhat infuriating. It's more annoying because the first half of the movie is so good. It sets everything up perfectly and things feel creepy in their perfection. Here is this happy, peaceful commune. Surely something weird is going on. But the answer was the most basic-ass answer possible, the kind of answer you can think of in your sleep. Midsummer pretends to be clever by showing overly detailed drawings and backgrounds, which you might consider to be clues, but in reality they're just full-blown spoilers. There's nothing intrinsic about it. When all is revealed, it's all quite simple and plain. Where the movie is clever in filmmaking and cinematography is equally simple in plot and storytelling. Maybe we were spoiled with Hereditary, which exposes things so perfectly and leaves pieces of the puzzle along the way. But Midsummer is not that at all. It's anticlimactic and the resolution is uninspiring and derivative. But like I said, I think it's worth watching, but I don't think I would ever watch it more than once. There you go, guys. Those are the most disappointing horror movies I've seen in 2019 so far. What horror movies were you anticipating but disliked when you saw them? Let me know in the comments section below. You can also let me know on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram if you look for Cineclub channel. Also, I now have a Patreon, so if you would like to sign up for more content and support my channel, I will be forever grateful. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe for more Halloween-themed videos and other movie content. But for now, I just want to say thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on Halloween. Ooh, I promise I won't do it again.